Hello everybody, welcome back to the Farming Simulator 25 tips and tricks video. Today we're going to conclude our march through all the various crops in Farm Sim 25 by taking a look at olives. Now if you've joined me on this journey and you've watched all the other videos up to this point, then give yourself a good pat on your back because it has been quite a long marathon of videos. It's hard to believe we have 25 crops available in Farming Simulator 25 as the default. That is just insane. And I can only imagine how many crops we might have in the next iteration, whenever that might come. Now, if you happen to have just landed on this video because you've been searching about olives, then by all means, do check out my tips and tricks playlist, because that is going to have, as I mentioned, videos for every single crop that is available in FS25, as well as several other pieces of content that you might get a little nugget or two with respect to how to care for animals, how to care for your land, the placeable mode, possibly what you need to do in order to build out the various buildable buildings. And, well, if you're looking for something big, maybe you're just curious, how long is it going to take and what type of resources are going to be required to build out the temple over on Hutan Pantai. We've got videos covering all of those topics. But today, we're going to focus on olives. Now, olives are one of two unique crops in Farm Sim 25 that aren't planted or seeded. In fact, olives and grapes are placed using the build mode, and that is the only way that you're going to be able to put your olives on the map. In fact, olives are also extremely, extremely expensive. And to that end, lots of players wait for a map to come out with the trees pre-placed. That way they can simply have just the investment in the machinery, because olives are also going to require some very specialized machinery. But before we get into all that, let's talk about some stats that we have with respect to olives from the Farm Sim 25 manual. We can expect an average yield. I shouldn't say average. We can expect a maximum yield of 18,400 liters per hectare. That is assuming that we have 100% yield bonus and we have 100% fertilization as a result. We have an average selling price on easy economy of $1,808 per 1,000 liters of olives. There's no seeds per hectare amount because, again, we are placing these trees. It's also interesting that they don't give you a cost per hectare to place olive trees. That's because it's incredibly, incredibly expensive. And we are going to try to establish that by using Field 41 here on Riverbend Springs. That is 0.96 hectares in size, so that's about as close as we're going to get. We can place our trees in March through June, and it has a single harvest month of October, which I find rather interesting given the wide range of months for which we could put these trees down. Somehow trees put down in June are going to be ready to harvest in October, and trees we put down in March are just going to lazy around and kind of take their time to get ready to harvest again in October. Now that we've talked about some of that information, let's go ahead and talk about some of the specialized machinery that we're going to need in order to work our land once we put our olives down and ultimately harvest our olive trees. You're going to need a small, narrow tractor like this little Landini tractor. I'm going to show you here in the shop where we can find those. You're going to need a specialized fertilize sprayer. We have the Mercury 4000 from Hardy in order to do that. We're going to find a small mulcher and a small subsoiler. And we're going to use that to basically care for the ground between the olive trees. Once the olives are ready to harvest, well, we have two choices between our harvesting. We have the New Holland harvester and they have the Grigor GL harvester. I think this is going to be the harvester of choice for most players because we can actually configure it to do olives or grapes. Whereas with the New Holland, it is a very specialty purposed harvester designed exclusively for olives. And the way this is going to work is we're basically going to drive the harvester between the rows, or in the rows, if you will, and it is going to shake the olives out of the tree with these shaker bars, and then the olives are going to be collected in these finger cups and then ultimately taken up and deposited in these side containers. Now let's take a look at this stuff in the vehicle shop. So we're going to come to drivables, small tractors. We have the Mini Landini Rex 4 GT. I like this particular tractor because it does have a wide range of horsepower from 70 to 112. We also can configure it with a front 3-point hitch or not. If you are going to be using Grapes, I do suggest using the front 3-point hitch. If not, then it really doesn't matter. We can also change the color if the mood suits you. If you're looking for something maybe a little bit more interesting, we have the New Holland TK 4.80 methane powered tracked tractor. That's right, this tractor is powered by methane gas as opposed to being diesel fuel. We have the Fendt 200V Vario, a little sister to the larger Fendt Vario tractors. This small and narrow tractor is again ideal for driving in between the rows of grapes and olives. We can set this up with a black beauty paint scheme, and we can also change its horsepower from, 79 to 114 horsepower. We have a pair of Antonio Cario tractors. This was a paid DLC in FS22, and 2 of those tractors have been brought forward to FS25. We have the little Tony 10900 TTR. This tractor is actually... No, I don't think this is the articulated one. We had an articulated one. This one looks to be fixed as far as the frame goes. And then we have the Mach 4R. And this really does remind me of the mini New Holland T9. And this one actually is articulated. I can see the cylinders there in the middle. Now, once we have our tractors, well, we're going to need the special machinery to fertilize and work the ground. For that, we're going to come down here to our olives and grapes, and we're going to go to the not so well named grape tools category. From here, we're going to find our Mercury 4000L sprayer. This is going to be for liquid fertilizer and herbicide, but I think all you're going to really need is ultimately liquid fertilizer. We also have our mulcher in the TPN 140, and we have the the Disco-Matic, we'll call it. This is going to be our subsoiler, and it's going to help us prepare the soil between our rows of olive trees. And then we have our olive harvesters. We have the Broad 9090X olive harvester. This is from New Holland. It is an olive harvester and olive harvester alone. So if you are going to do olives and grapes, well, you're going to have to buy this, and you're going to have to buy a grape harvester as well. So almost doubling down on your investment. If you, though, go for the Grigor GL, and I may be butchering that completely, well, it comes default in the grape configuration. Even if we are in our olive harvesters category, the default configuration is grapes. So if you are going to do olives, be sure to tick the olive marker. That way we have this shield that comes in here to help bring the olives into the configuration. We also get a couple more like shaker bars up there in the olive configuration, and this can be set up with different engines from 156 to 190 horsepower and different configurations, 3,000 to 4,000 liters. And if we do that, these little side buckets, they just extend out just a wee little bit more. And there you go. That's all the machinery really you're going to need with respect to olives. Now let's take a look here in the menus, and we'll come here to our crop counter and just reiterate once again that our olives, we're going to be able to plant or place them March through June, and we're going to be able to harvest in October and October alone. So make sure you have enough time in October to get your olive trees processed, and you don't have a bunch of other crops that are also coming due in that month. With respect to our prices, well, for olives, we are again here on Easy Economy. We have an average high price of $2,172. Remember, the infographic showed us the average price. This is the average high price on Easy Economy. And again, this is if we sell 1,000 liters worth of olives. We have the average low of $1,419 in or around November timeframe. So it really looks like to get our most out of our olives, we're going to be holding on to them for a good chunk of the year between October and June. Now we can also process our olives into olive oil. And to do that, we're going to come down here to olive oil. And we can see we have an average high price of $8,784 for our olive oil, again in June. And this is again based on 1,000 liters. We have an average of $5,715 for our olive oil. And we're going to be able to sell our olive oil at the farmer's market, Goldcrest Valley train sell point, the restaurant, then the small farmer's kiosk here on Riverbend Springs. And by all means, never buy any of this stuff at the warehouse because it is way too expensive. Now, if you have placed a small farmer's kiosk, well, you can do that. You can also place the big farmer's kiosk, or you could place your own farmer's market if you wanted to. If you're playing on a map that has a potato processor, well, they're going to be able to accept olive oil as a item for purchase. But if you own the potato processor, well, then you're going to be able to take your olive oil and your potatoes and convert those into potato chips for a second tier production for our olives. And if we do that, well, we're going to come down here. We can see our potato chips. We're going to have an average price in October of $4,548 per 1,000 liters of chips, and an average of $4,467, again, for 1,000 liters of potato chips. They're going to be available for sale at the farmer's market, Goldcrest Valley train sell point, the restaurant, small farmer's kiosk, and if you place the big farmer's kiosk, well, you can sell it there as well. If we take a look at our productions for our olive oil, we have a 40% ratio of basically what is put in is what we get out. So if, for example, we put 10,000 liters worth of olives in, we're only going to get 4,000 liters worth of olives out, with the result of our reduction from our inputs to outputs of 40%. Now, if we take our olive oil over to our potato processor, well, the story is a little bit different. We have 4 units of olive oil in is going to make 30 units of potato chips. So we have a 7.5 increase in what we bring in to what we put out. But of course, we're going to have to maintain a good steady supply of potatoes in order to maximize our usage of our olive oil. We will be doing a little bit of calculation later on in the video with respect to if we took all of our olive oil over here to our potato chip place, how many potatoes would we have to have in order to ultimately get all of the potato chips processed? And then what would we make basically if we had 1 hectare's worth of olive field and we exclusively focused it on potato chip processing? Well, with all that said, well, let's talk about the field, what we did to prepare for putting our olives down, and how do we put olives down in the field to begin with. We're going to be using, again, field 41 here on Riverbend Springs. The reason we're using this field is, 1, it's nice, it's square, and it's approximately 1 hectare in size, being 0.96 hectares. And I've already prepared this field by plowing it. I've put lime down, and I have 1 level of fertilization applied to this as well. So we are now ready to place our olives. And it should be noted that we don't have to place our olives on a field. We can literally place olives anywhere on land we own. So let's go here into build mode. We're going to come down here to the second icon with factories, and we're going to toggle over to cultivation. We're going to tick on our olive trees, and we're going to navigate this screen by holding down the mouse button, left, right, up, and down, and we're going to zoom in and out with the scroll wheel, and that's going to help us ultimately figure out where we want to put these things. And we're going to move left, right with A and D, and W and S, forward and back. To place some olive trees, we're going to take our little circle here, left click, we're going to drag, and we're going to release, and then we're going to left click again, and we have placed our trees. Oh no, I didn't want to put trees here. What am I going to do? Well, let's hit escape once, and now we've lost our little circle. We're going to hit B to go into demo mode, and let's just clickety click, and we get the little yellow thing going on there. Yeah, I want to delete those trees, and there we go. We have now completely fixed our problem by getting rid of the trees we didn't mean to put down. And look here, it put the texture back, so we don't have to really worry about cleaning things up. Now, that's not necessarily the case over here in the field, because if we do that, it's going to delete the field. You can put the field back by plowing it, but that's just something to be aware of. Now, let's start here in our corner, and let's also talk about snap mode, R to turn snap mode on. And when we're going to left click, we're going to drag. And you can see how it's kind of jumping. It's not smooth. It's kind of, you know, a little jerky. That snap, it's trying to snap to the angle. Right, so 360 degrees. If we were to count all those out. If we turn snapping off, it's just going to move free. Nice and smooth, right? We can be on any angle we want. We're going to turn snapping back on, and we're going to run all the way up to the edge of the field here. But we're not going to place the trees all the way down here, because I need to turn my harvester around. So I'm going to back it down to $19,500. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to position this so we're right here on the edge of the field. Left click to place. And there we go. We have our nice, long, straight run of olive trees. $19,500. And we're going to blow that out all the way across the field. And in order to do that, we're going to take our cursor. You see here we have a white cursor. Now we have a green cursor. White, green, white, green, white, green. All right. We want our cursor to be green. I can be anywhere here that it's green. I'm going to left click, and you can see now if I move left or right, it's not going to move. It's basically snapped to the right distance apart for the row that is beside it. And we're going to come back up here to 19.5, left click, and place. And we're going to do it again. Back down here, green, and place. And we're just going to continue this down, keeping count of how many runs we put in. And then ultimately, I'll come back and let you know how much it cost in order to basically populate this 0.96 hectare field worth of olive trees. $19,500 per row. So in the end, we have 21 rows of olive trees, $19,500 per row. That's $409,500 to place out approximately 1 hectare's worth of olives. Quite a major investment. In fact, it's more expensive than your investment if you were doing grapes. And ironically, it's the same 21 rows. So the spacing is approximately the same between each of these trees with respect to grapes and olive vines. Now, what do? Well, we've got some field prep we need to take care of. So let's grab our little mini Landini, and let's grab our cultivator, subsoiler, whatever you want to call it. Oh, look at that. Look at that nice field of olive trees. And we're going to come up here to the left side. And we're going to steering assist on, engage, drop that thing down, and off we go. So we are going to basically run our subsoiler through each of these rows, breaking up the soil here, because as you can see, we have a completely different texture now, right on the field. So it's no longer a traditional field. Now it's basically an olive orchard, grove, I guess, whatever the proper terminology is for olives. And as such, this subsoiler acts differently with respect to the soil that we dig up between our trees and outside of our trees. So here we have that little bit of field that we left open so we can actually turn around, given the fact that we have a fence here. If I run this along this soil, you'll see at some point stones are going to pop up, right? So this will generate stones if we run this tool on regular soil. but we do not get stones if we run this tool on our soil between our olives. You'll also notice that we have grass still on the ground after we've run our subsoiler through. That clearly wouldn't happen in a traditional field. Okay, so again, this area is a little bit different. That's why we're going to bring the mulcher through at a later point in time. Let me go ahead and finish this out, and we'll advance forward into April. Okay, so step 1 is done. We have subsoiled between the rows. I don't know why I thought I could walk between the trees, but no, it's just one giant collision. Now, we could go ahead and fertilize or mulch that, but I would just want to go ahead and just take this 1 month at a time. But of course, you could stack these steps if you wanted to. But given the fact that it's March, we got to go all the way to October, we got plenty of time. Plenty of time to do all these steps individually. So here we go. We are in April. Let's go ahead and grab our little Landini again and head on over here and get our mulcher. And now basically we're just going to repeat exactly what we did with the subsoiler, this time with our mulcher. We're going to line her up. Enable our steering assist. Notice that we cannot hire AI on our vines or our trees. And off we go, right? We are now mulching our soil. Let me finish this and we'll be back with you. Okay, so it's May, and with that, let's go ahead and get our fertilization up to snuff. So I've hooked up to our Mercury 4000. We have a pallet of liquid fertilizer here. Let's go ahead and hit R to fill this up. And the way this fertilizer spreader works, or sprayer works, is there's a big fan here in the back. And the big fan basically will spray in a circular pattern fertilizer all around, and in essence we're going to be hitting both trees at the same time. So let's come on up in here. We're going to once again do our steering assist so we don't run into the trees, and let's turn it on, and we can see from the sun pattern, the spray pattern there of our liquid fertilizer. So we are, in essence, now fertilizing our olives. And if we come here and take a look at our ground stuff, we can see our fertilization taking effect here. Now, I would still run up and down every single row, even though you can see we are hitting technically 2 rows at a time. If we skipped a row and I missed my row, right? But you can see we missed a fair bit, right? There's a pretty big gap here. So I would still come back and hit every single row up and down. Think of it, you're fertilizing each side of the tree, right? So think of it that way, as opposed to, while I'm hitting both rows, I can skip and go down the next one, because you will see gaps. So let me try to get the right row now to prove that out. All right, so there we go. Right, we just went down that row. Now we're going down that row. But if we look, see, we're still missing here. So what we want to do is we want to backfill, and then we won't have any missed gaps. So let me go ahead and finish fertilizing our olives. All right, we've made it into June. We have 100% yield bonus, 100% fertilized. We get a little close-up look here at our olive trees. We really don't see a whole lot going on here. So I guess we'll just fast forward into July and just keep going until we see some olives pop, I guess. Okay, so we've made it into August, and if we get close up here, right, we can see little olives growing on our trees now. All right, let's move on into September. Alrighty, October is here. You can see our olives have darkened up. They are now ready to harvest. So let's go ahead and, well, let's move on with some things. Yeah, now we're going to grab the GL harvester here. And we are going to hit X to unfold it. Now these harvesters are pretty neat in that they try to auto level. And this is all fairly flat, but I want to try to demonstrate this feature over here on maybe these dump stations. I don't know if there's going to be enough to demonstrate this or not. But at any rate, they try to auto level. I couldn't really show it there. So you may find if you're working on a hill or an incline that the left side or the right side tires are higher or lower, or the front is higher or lower, in order to try to maintain a level working surface. And the way this is going to work is we're going to run our harvester right down the middle of our olive trees, and it's going to basically shake the olives off the tree. Right, so here we do not have olives there. We do have olives there, and we get some leaf matter and such coming out the bottom or back. And we'll see our olives basically showing up there. And then the individual olives are being deposited there in the left and right hoppers. So we're going to enable steering assist. That way we can easily run down the middle without having to worry about steering, even though our rows are relatively straight. And we'll see what we get. Now, in my grape video, I didn't see the 18,400 liters worth of grapes that was expected with a 1 hectare field. So I'm not really sure what's going on with there. And quite honestly, it looks like we're going to see the same thing here with our olives. Because we only had about 400 and some liters in our one run of grapes. And we had the same with our olives. It took 7 rows of grapes to basically fill up our harvester at 3,000 liters. Well, 7 divided by 21 is 3. So 369, right around 9,000 liters, or basically half of what we were supposed to have had. So I'm not really sure what's up with that, because we performed all the steps, right? We subsoiled, we mulched, we fertilized to 100%. So we'll just have to, I guess, see how it all works out. If you have any other experiences, let me know in the comments. I have heard from one comment, not on the Grape video because that recently got published. If you're watching this right after this goes live, it was actually in a completely different video yesterday, but for you about a week ago, someone made a comment that they have not been able to get the expected yield out of the grapes. They were only getting about half yield, and that is basically what I'm seeing here as well, or at least what I saw in the grape video. It's basically what I'm seeing here in the olive video. So let me go ahead, finish this up. We're not going to banter until we fill this thing up. Let's finish this up, and I'll bring you back and show you how we're going to unload this into a trailer. So you can pretty much unload olives into nearly any trailer. Now that is different than grapes, where you had to unload into a specific grape trailer. We're going to back up to our trailer. We're going to hit I. It's going to dump our olives out the back. And there we go. And we are indeed seeing 7 rows to fill up our harvester. So again, I don't know what's going on, where we went wrong. We basically did all the steps we needed to do. And we're seeing half yield. So again, I'd love to know your all's experiences with respect to olives in FS25 as compared to those experienced with FS22. Let me go ahead and finish harvesting this field out, and we'll see what we get as far as a yield. Our harvest is done. We've got a total of 8,694 liters. A far cry from the 18,400 liters we're supposed to get per hectare. So I really don't know what's going on here. But at any rate, this is what we've got. We saw the same general thing with respect to grapes as well. I'm going to dump all of it into our oil mill, but let's just run the numbers. So if we did sell our olives straight up at the best average price in June, $2,113, we would have earned a total of $18,370. That's it. It's going to take a long time to pay back that $409,500 we invested. Many years. Thankfully, olive trees are place once, harvest forever. We don't have to worry about it anymore. With respect to olive oil, well, if you remember, we talked about we're going to get 40% back of what we put in. So we should get 7,348 liters back as far as olive oil goes. The best price here, $8,474, best average high price. If we sold that, well, we'd have a little better investment or return. We'd have a return of $62,268 out of our 7,348 liters worth of oil. So again, but that's going to take many years of getting our olives and processing them into oil to pay back for our investment. Now, where do you think we can make our money back quick? Well, with potato chips. Because, well, potato chips are only $4,536 for 1,000 liters high on average. We're going to get a whole lot of potato chips for our olive oil investment. Now, I've attempted to run the numbers, and I'm not super good at math, so I may be off. But at any rate, I think 183,000 liters worth of potatoes and 7,346 liters worth of olive oil is going to basically even out and finish right around zero. And I don't even want to know how much math it's going to take to figure out how many bags of potato chips or how many pounds of potato chips we're going to get. So we're going to fast forward and see what happens and then do the math there. And we learned from our potato harvest that we can basically get 183,000 liters worth of potatoes. Pretty sure it's going to be like less than 2 hectares worth of potatoes. We got pretty darn good yield on our 1 hectare of potatoes when we did that potato video. And I feel it was like 1 hectare of potatoes was right around 100,000 liters. So if that's the case, right around 200,000 liters, 180 is going to be maybe 2 hectares worth of potatoes. So maybe 2 harvests of potatoes to 1 harvest worth of olives. Now let's go ahead and fast forward into tomorrow and see how much olive oil we had produced. And then see if we're still on track with respect to our potato chips. I think when we did our run through with the potatoes, it took several months in order to get all the potato chips built out. So we have 2,000 liters worth of our olive oil now. And we have, I believe these are 2,000 liters apiece. Yes, 6,000 liters worth of potato chips. So let me just fast forward a few months and I'll bring you back. So I'm sitting here realizing I completely used the wrong number when I was calculating out olive oil. Completely and utterly used the wrong number. I think I used the 18,370 and 40% of that. So yeah, totally wrong number. We're not going to get anywhere near 7,000 liters worth of olive oil. We're going to get 3,480 some liters worth of olive oil. So I have 3 full pallets. That's going to completely change our numbers. So we've got now $29,468 worth of revenue from our olive oil. So we took our numbers, our new numbers, with respect to our olives, and we had, right, 3,477, and then we divided that by 1,000. We multiplied that up by 84.74. That's where we got the 29,468. I've also gone in and now modified my oil. So I did the math as to how much oil we have already used up based on the right numbers, and then I deducted that back out. So that should be the right amount of oil that is left to use. So let's go ahead and fast forward that and see how many potato chips we get out to see if it's worth combining our olive oil and potato chips to make lots of money. It's taken us to February, but we now have 28,000 liters worth of potato chips. So we have all of these pallets here are potato chips, and if we take a look at our production, we used about 100,000 liters worth of potatoes, which is kind of ironic that about 100,000 liters worth of potatoes is, I believe from memory, 1 hectare or so's worth of yield. And then we had all of our olive oil consumed up, and we end up with 28,000 liters worth of potato chips. If we look at our price here, $4,533 per 1,000 liters times 28. That's a profit or a revenue of $126,924. So 4 years of running through potato chips is going to get you enough money to pay back your olive investment, but you're still going to have to pay back your investment on your 2 factories, because your oil factory is going to be $240,000 and your potato processing factory is going to be another $360,000 on top of that. So $600,000 in factory investment on top of your $400,000 investment on olive trees. Well, you're going to have to go a whole lot more than just 4 years in order to pay all that back. So, are olives worth it in the end? I honestly don't think so. I don't think grapes are honestly worth it in the end either. Unless, of course, you come upon a map that has a good amount of olives pre-placed. And then your initial $400,000 investment, let's say of a 1 hectare's worth of olives, is already done. You don't have to worry about it. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below with respect to olives. Have you done olives in FS25? Have you seen the same general lackluster yield that I had seen? What do you do different if you are seeing the yield that they are expecting you to see with respect to yield per hectare, which is a little rough to calculate out because, again, there's so many variables with respect to placing these trees. Until next time, happy farming.